I have the bell, I'm in charge. Sorry, got a little power hungry there. Good morning. All right, it's Sunday again, and I welcome you on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills. I'm the Reverend Margret A. Neall. My pronouns are she, her. And describing myself for inclusivity, I'm a white person in my elder years. My hair is chin length, light brown with silver highlights. I'm wearing a black robe with my Unitarian Universalist Side with Love social justice stole. It's my honor and privilege to serve this UU congregation of the Catskills, and I'm so very glad to be here with you on our journey. So you may have realized by now that the order of service looks a little different than it normally does. Did anybody not notice? So there has been discussion on and off since I got here in August about whether we should print more of the announcements, like some edited announcements from the Tuesday news in the order of service for people that don't get the Tuesday news or don't read. You all read the Tuesday news, right? Or who just need an update or want something you could put on your refrigerator door with a magnet. And so we've decided to go ahead and make it a reality. Many thanks to Rita Rotolo, our church administrator, who's editing the updates from the electronic Tuesday news to create announcements to be printed. And of course to Cattabiani, who serves as lead for our worship team and who also creates the program for the service as prints it and folds it. Although we may stop folding it, we're thinking about a different format. So we may do like the order of service on one side and the announcements on the other side, just for simplicity. But we're sure you'll work with our experimental process. Now we welcome your feedback, and please express appreciation to Catherine and Rita, who made this happen. So, yay! So you'll hear more from me later, but now our worship associate, Ellen Herrington, will provide a welcome and update on all the wonderful things that are happening here.
Good morning. Good morning. I did not need my glasses. Okay. I am Ellen Herrington, and my pronouns are she and they, and I'm glad to be your worship associate today. We welcome you this morning, those of you who are here in the sanctuary, as well as those joining us on Zoom. If you're here in person and new to this congregation, a member of our welcome team, Stu Jacobson, will be at the welcome table about assigning our visitor book to reserve our email news. If you're joining us on Zoom, you can you can visit our website at uucatskills.org to find contact information and to find the latest newsletter. And you can scroll to the bottom of the page for the form to be added to our email news list. A reminder that people of all ages, children young and old, are welcome here at UU Catskills. There used to be a space across the hall for anyone who'd like to hear the service while being freely moved about, but the children are using that right now. So if you are restless, you may use the social hour space. Yeah.
We just gave it a name.
Yeah, nothing. After the service, please stay for in-person refreshments or for a time of connection if you're on Zoom. We have a few short announcements from Kathy DiMatteo. Coffee hosts are needed for our remaining time in the sanctuary. The calendar is wide open. If you are interested in providing these appreciated services, see Kathy. If you are planning to attend the MLK services today and tomorrow at Riverview Baptist Church, they have been canceled due to the winter weather moving our way. Each Sunday, the Social Action Committee shares information about an event, opportunity, or idea to support our justice work beyond our four walls and inspire questions and discussions to explore during our social hour and beyond. Today, we will hear from Donna Schlafman.
Thank you, Donna Schlackman. I use the pronouns she and her. And my announcement is going to be shorter because it's printed in your order of service. However, bear with me because those on Zoom don't have it. Today, we are going to invite you into our UU principle, Surrounded by Love of Justice and Generosity, by inviting you to participate in a fundraiser, no, not fundraiser, a pass along your used clothing for the winter to the warming center, the Ulster County Warming Center, which is located in Kingston, not far from where our new home is. It's at 80 Elvendor. This is a place where unhoused people can get a place to sleep, to get services, to get 3 home-cooked meals and support, and form what they need to get them through the winter. It's a really amazing place. I've been several times. Thank you all who have already donated our winter clothing drive. One more thing, they also would love books. So if you finish them and you think someone else would enjoy them, you can also pass them along. There's a box out in the hall. You can give stuff to me. I will come to your home and pick it up. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are all welcome here. We are a religion centered in love. We draw on many sources of wisdom and inspiration as we seek to understand the world, the universe, and the mystery beyond all human knowing. At UU Catskills, we seek to live our values in every part of our lives. We affirm that Black lives matter. We are a welcoming and affirming congregation for the LGBTQ+ community. We are a congregational affiliate of the Ulster Immigrant Defense Network, and we are an active voice in the effort to address climate change. Our sanctuary is built on the tribal land of the Lenni Lenape people. Please take a moment and turn off your electronic devices. Give yourself permission to be fully present here, now. Our prelude this morning is Poor Mourners Got a Home by Wallace McLean Chatham, played by Catherine Cattabiani.
Thank you, Catherine. The music Catherine is playing today is featuring African-American composers, and so thank you. I invite the children to come forward for the chalice lighting, any who would like to be part of that, and Ellen will give you an assist. And of course the candle went out. So it was doing fine until a minute ago, so we'll get a new votive. Yeah, we'll get a new one in there. So. I think they'll need to be in front.
Okay.
We're tucked forward a little bit here. It's okay. So let's join in the words of the chalice lighting. We light this chalice in grateful, loving community. Even in the darkest of times, may its flame light paths to courage, justice, and hope. Thank you. Well done. And now our unison affirmation. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated, but connected in wonder and joy, mystery and miracle, in the universe, in this community, and in each other. So we're getting a little sound from the microphones, and I think it's because I disrupted the cable. So we'll just kind of manage it. So I call us into worship this morning with words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we celebrate this weekend. This excerpt from his letter from a Birmingham jail is called A Network of Mutuality. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. May it be so. May we hew out of a mountain of despair a stone of hope as we enter this space of love and commitment to shape our highest aspirations and deepest commitments. Let us shape worship in its most ancient meaning. Come, let us shape, let us worship together. And in the spirit of hope and determination in challenging times, our opening hymn today is number 119 in your hymnal, Once to Every Soul and Nation. our time, don't they? And now Catherine will do our Not for Children Only.
It's a little scary. Okay.
It's just rattling.
I'll stand very still. Okay, so today's service is about passive resistance. And this is for, the name of this whole piece of this service is called Not for Children Only. So I need the older kids and the younger kids today. The service is passive resistance, and if you ask the older kids how you might do that, they might say, carry a protest sign, write a letter, stand in a hallway and block a politician, something like that. Well, many years ago, 1965, a bunch of kids did some passive resistance, which is pretty impressive. And I'm requiring the big kids and the little kids to help me sing the song. I can get my first note. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. That's what you're going to, big kids and little kids are going to sing. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. Okay, so years ago, in Lambeth, Ontario, which has now been absorbed by the city of London, there were 11 trees that were going to be cut down. And the children did not like this. They had to widen the road. So in order to do that, they were going to cut down the trees, and the kids said, we like to climb these trees. So what the kids did, they climbed the trees and they stayed there. So, are you ready for the song? This is by my friend Melvina Reynolds. 50 children sitting in the trees, 50 children swinging in the breeze, high in the branches and off their knees. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh, hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. 11 fine maples growing in a row, the road to be widened doomed them to go. But 50 children of Lambeth cried, no, no. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh, hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. Roads we've enough and roads everywhere, roads for the cars that we can well spare. Long live the maple trees, green or bare. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh, hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. The woodsmen came with their axes and their saws. The kids on the branches were chirruping like daws. The woodsman said, the devil with the laws. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh, hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. Lambeth town in Ontario, that's where the maple trees still stand in a row. That's where the loveliest children grow. Hooray for the Lambeth children, oh, hooray for the Lambeth children, oh. So, when you want to protest without, passively resist, I should say, you can march in a protest, you can refuse to buy products made by companies you don't agree with, or you can climb a tree. So I'll sing you on your way. As you leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which you learn light your hearts till you return.
Without wavering, live and work always in the power of love. Amen. As we gather into our hearts all that has been spoken and all that remains unspoken among us, let us hold a time of silence for our inmost prayers. May the wishes of our minds and the deep desires of our hearts rise and be heard in this universe of love. Amen, and blessed be.
Each week, we take a plate collection to benefit the congregation and the community. Any contributions that are placed in the basket without specific instructions will be shared, half to benefit the congregation, the other half to support 8 organizations in Kingston and Ulster County who serve those in need and create community resources. There are several ways to give. Place cash or a check in the basket when it is passed. Use the QR code in your order of service, or give electronically by going to uucatskills.org. If you wish your donation in the basket to go toward your pledge or to be used only by the congregation, please use an envelope from the basket with your name and the purpose of your donation written on the envelope, or make a note in the memo line of your check. For the love and support we share with the world, please give generously. Our offertory music this morning is Tender Thought by Ulysses K., played by Cattabiani. For the generosity of spirit, the generosity of giving into the world, we offer thanks. This weekend, we celebrate the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., activist and strategist in the civil rights movement for African American equality, a model and exemplar in the art and science of applying peaceful resistance to uproot an entrenched system of legalized oppression. Last Thursday, the Kingston Interfaith Council decided to honor the memory and heritage of Dr. King in their meeting, as the opening to their meeting, by reading in its entirety his inspirational letter from a Birmingham jail. That letter takes an hour to read out loud. I'm not going to do it today. No worries. But that letter to the white clergy in Alabama is a beautiful testimony and reminder of the ways in which institutions of religion have often fallen short of living into their founding principles, calling us back to our commitments to justice and wholeness in the world. Dr. King wrote the letter to the clergymen of the city of Birmingham, Alabama, in response to their criticism of his involvement as an outside agitator in the 1963 Birmingham campaign for civil rights, for which he was arrested and jailed. In the letter, King explained that the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC, of which he was president, had been invited by the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights to be on call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program if that were deemed necessary. The SCLC readily consented, and when the hour came, they lived up to their promise to engage nonviolent action in Birmingham.
Later that same year, in August 1963, saw another nonviolent action, the March on Washington, in support of the National Civil Rights Act, and the occasion for King's well-known "I Have a Dream" speech. Those were both in 1963. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. King responds to the attacks by his clergy colleagues on his actions with his own critique of the role of mainstream Christianity in passively upholding oppressive systems. As he says, quote, "You deplore the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. It is unfortunate the demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative." End quote. Recognizing that the dominant religious institutions in the South were part of the white power structure, King's letter continues, quote, "So often the contemporary church is a weak, ineffectual voice with an uncertain sound. So often it is an arch defender of the status quo. Far from being disturbed by the presence of the church, the power structure of the average community is consoled by the church's silent and often even vocal sanction of things as they are." And King asks, is organized religion too inextricably bound to the status quo to save our nation and the world? End quote. And so we come to the present day. I believe that in these times, 6 decades after the push and the progress gained by the civil rights movement, we are once again facing a sanctioned resurgence in expressions of racism, along with homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, toxic nationalism, and class oppression that have never been far beneath the surface of this complex society. And so this is a time for us to reflect upon and learn from the exemplars in the movement for African American civil rights and to put into action the lessons from that time. Each autumn for the past 3 years, I've spent several days with UU colleagues in Montgomery, Alabama, which was a birthplace of the American system of slavery, as well as being a birthplace of the civil rights movement and of the Jim Crow system of segregation that subverted the intentions of emancipation and perpetuated the oppression of people of African descent in this nation. Montgomery is perhaps best known for the historic bus boycott in 1956, which took place 7 years prior to the Birmingham campaign and the National March on Washington. That was the setting in which the Montgomery bus boycott was planned and implemented. So the story I've most often heard about the boycott was that Mrs. Rosa Parks, on her own initiative, boarded a public bus, paid her fare, took an open seat, and then refused to give up her seat to a white person, saying that she was tired and had a right to sit down. She was arrested, and that sparked the bus boycott. The reality of this peaceful collective action is substantially more complex than the story I heard, and I quote from the history of the boycott, quote, "Dr. King was in a strategic leadership position. I got scrambled. So the pages got scrambled. No wonder that didn't make any sense. All right. Dr. King was in a strategic leadership position for the Montgomery bus boycott, but the deeper context and shared leadership of that initiative, including the widely publicized role of Mrs. Rosa Parks, are often not fully understood. So today I want to take us back in time to the 1950s in Alabama, when segregation and forced Jim Crow subservience of African American citizens was the norm, especially in the southern states. Death at the hands of mob rule was too often the means of enforcement, and the system was tacitly or explicitly supported by the white power systems at the local, state, and federal level, and that was the setting of the Montgomery bus boycott. So Rosa Parks was arrested, and that's what we hear, but the roots of the bus boycott began years before the arrest of Rosa Parks. The Women's Political Caucus, WPC, a group of Black professionals founded in 1946, had already turned their attention to the Jim Crow practices of segregation on the Montgomery city buses. In a meeting with the mayor of Montgomery in March 1954, the WPC members outlined the changes they sought to provide more equitable treatment in Montgomery's bus system. When the meeting failed to produce any meaningful change, the WPC informed the mayor that, quote, there has been talk from 25 or more local organizations of planning a citywide boycott of buses, end quote. In the spring of 1955, a year after those demands were presented with no action, a 15-year-old named Claudette Colvin was arrested for challenging segregation on a Montgomery bus. And then 7 months later, the 18-year-old Mary Louise Smith was arrested for refusing to yield her seat to a white passenger. Neither arrest, however, mobilized Montgomery's Black community like that of Rosa Parks later that year. As Dr. King has written, quote, Mrs. Parks was ideal for the role assigned her by history because her character was impeccable and her dedication deep-rooted, and she was one of the most respected people in the African-American community. She had also been trained in grassroots organizing for social change in the Highlander Folk School in Tennessee. Parks was part of a broadly based campaign of nonviolent action for social justice. She wasn't acting as an individual, and her action was the outcome of years of careful planning and strategic community organizing. The events flowed swiftly after Rosa Parks' arrest on December 1st, 1955. The WPC were supported by local Black ministers in calling for a one-day bus boycott, and courageous volunteers printed and distributed leaflets throughout the Black community. Quote, the planned protest received unexpected publicity in the weekend newspapers and radio and television reports. And then on December 5th, 90% of Montgomery's Black citizens stayed off the buses. That afternoon, the city's ministers and leaders met to form the Montgomery Improvement Association, MIA, and elected as their president the young minister, Dr. King, who had recently become pastor of Montgomery's Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. The MIA voted to continue the boycott beyond one day, and on December 8th, they issued a formal list of demands to city officials. They asked for courteous treatment by bus operators, first come, first served seating for all, and Black operators on predominantly Black bus routes. These demands were met with stony silence. Montgomery's Black residents stayed off the buses for 13 months. So just think, if you rely on the bus system to get to work, to go shopping, to take care of basic needs, 13 months staying off the buses. This was a huge sacrifice. It was from December 1955 through December 1956, and the MIA developed an intricate carpool system of about 300 cars for residents to help each other get to their jobs and essential errands during that difficult year, since the Black community had relied extensively on the bus system for transportation. Without that broad voluntary support in the carpool, without that community organizing that was underneath the boycott might well have failed on the sheer necessity of transportation. In early 1956, in beginning stages of the boycott, veteran pacifists Bayard Rustin and Glenn E. Smiley visited Montgomery and offered Dr. King their advice on the application of Mahatma Gandhi's techniques of nonviolence to American race relations. King absorbed the ideas from these proponents of faith-based nonviolent direct action and crafted his own synthesis of Gandhian principles of nonviolence. He said, quote, Christ showed us the way, and Gandhi in India showed it could work, end quote. Legal action was also part of the strategy. On June 5th of that year, the federal district court ruled that bus segregation was unconstitutional. And in November 1956, the US Supreme Court affirmed the lower court finding that struck down laws requiring segregated seating on public buses. After some further legal wrangling on December 20th, Dr. King called for the end of the boycott, and the community agreed, probably with a sigh of relief. The next morning, he boarded an integrated bus with Ralph Abernathy, E.D. Nixon, and Glenn Smiley. Martin Luther King's role in the bus boycott garnered international attention, and the MIA's tactics of combining mass nonviolent protest with Christian ethics became the model for challenging segregation in the South. So, what is it about this story that brings it to mind right now, as this nation prepares to enter a time in which national leaders in the executive and legislative branches are proclaiming their intention to deport undocumented migrants and to roll back initiatives designated to assure justice and equal treatment for all? For me, the heart of this story is in the model it gives us for unwavering commitment to persevere in working toward an outcome that at times appears impossible, in the strategic wisdom of planning and mobilizing resources for the long haul, and in the power of collaborative, collective action that engages an entire community in working toward common ends. As an article describing Dr. King's guiding principles says, quote, by emphasizing virtues such as understanding, love, peace, and learning, King laid out an inspiring vision for sustained collective action as the moral and necessary path in achieving justice. King's 6 principles for nonviolent direct action are, number 1, nonviolence as a way of life for courageous people. 2, nonviolence seeks to win friendships and understanding. 3, nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice or evil, not people. Seeks to defeat the injustice, not the people. 4, nonviolence holds that unearned voluntary suffering for a just cause can educate and transform people and societies. 5, nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. And 6, nonviolence believes that the universe is on the side of justice. King was known often to quote the words of Unitarian minister Theodore Parker, quote, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I'm known often to append to that quote, the hands that bend the arc toward justice are the ones at the ends of our arms. I believe that the Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to engage with the model of strategic wisdom and committed action that was demonstrated by the civil rights leaders in the last century and by their successors, the courageous leaders among us in the present day. The principles of nonviolence call us to choose love instead of hate, to work in partnership and reach out to win friendship and understanding, seeking to defeat injustice rather than people, to educate and transform people and societies in our belief that the deep and wide power of the universe is on the side of justice. Perhaps most important of all is that we center ourselves in hope, in a dream, that we commit to our shared vision of a society centered in the power of love, assuring justice and compassion for all. As Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was delivering his carefully crafted keynote address in the 1963 March on Washington, gospel singer Mahalia Jackson urged him to go off script to reflect on just such a shared vision with her now famous words, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And in these extemporaneous words, which are well known, that is exactly what he did, and I quote, "Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, and I would say all people, are created equal. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and that the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood, and I would say family consciousness. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for the freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my forebears died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring." End quote. In the closing paragraph of his letter from a Birmingham jail, King returned to his core and compelling message of hope. Quote, Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities. And in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty. End quote. And so for us all, I wish the bright hope, that radiant star, that in our strategic wisdom and collective commitments, we will discover among ourselves the power of peaceful resistance, that love will overcome fear and prejudice, and the dream may ring true. And I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn, an anthem to hope for those who struggle under oppression, to courage, collaboration, and dedication in our shared work to bring justice to the world. Let us sing number 169 in our hymnal, We Shall Overcome. Please be seated. As we honor the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and of all those who worked, who sacrificed their lives, who put their lives at risk for freedom, for peace, may we be inspired and guided by the principles of commitment, collaboration, and nonviolence that were demonstrated by those on the path before us in the struggle for rights and justice. May we join to walk hand in hand so that we may all join the human birthright of freedom, justice, and peace as we proclaim we shall overcome someday. So may it be. Amen and blessed be. I invite you now to join in the words for extinguishing the flame. They're printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now our Sunday.
I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
As we end our time together, I invite you to turn to someone near you or reach out to someone you don't know as well as you'd like, greet them, and go together to enjoy some refreshments and conversation. But don't go away, because our congregational meeting will start probably as soon as we're ready for it, so that we work around the fears of incoming weather, and it looks like it's still okay outside. So far, so good. May we go in peace and love. Amen. And bless.